Bobby,
No,
it's good, Bobby. It feels good to
yeah, we me and him almost the same. We connected at the hip.
It's good to have you here in the studio with us for a little while this afternoon.
It's good to be here.
And it's always interesting to allow you to take us on these voyages into the inner world of our spirit, because it has so many different dimensions.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of speaking with Sister Sabonfu, Melodoma's wife, and she dealt in the world of the African before the European, and she talked about ritual, and it sounded a lot like magic when she talked about her village and the rituals and the reason for rituals, and then going into rituals, they were able to go into other worlds. And what I saw was that African people lived in an entirely different world. The one thing I found that I wish she had dealt with more forcefully with, and this is what I was going to say to you downstairs, is that I asked her to describe more or less this spirit that we're dealing with. Obviously, this European is not the same as we are, and he has brought both death to our physical world as we know it, even destroyed our mental capacity to see our world as we saw it, by taking away our language, our culture, and that was really forcefully done. But we are dealing with death to our world and to us. And I asked her if she would describe what kind of spirit we're dealing with. And I want to ask you the same question, because she did say that we were dealing with a spirit of death, you know, of destruction, that it was not, it was a completely alien spirit. But then when I asked her how would we kill it, she laughed and she said we would have to heal it, and that's where we parted company. But I mean, that's
it's the same thing, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, all right. What are we dealing with? And I'm asking you the same question.
Yeah.
First, though, what are we really dealing with? It is not us. It's not the same. How different is it? Why is it different? And talk about that differences.
Well, you have to just take it in stages. You said something very pertinent about ritual. And ritual is the device by which we focus or transcend or cross over from what is temporal to what is trans-temporal. In other words, ritual is the bridge to the realm of myth. And the realm of myth is actually the true history of the spirit. See, the Caucasoid locks us into this physical illusionary history and tells you that myth is something that is the machination or the creation of the imagination of our humanity, when actually it is actually the interpretation by the spirit of its own physical adventure. So when we do ritual, we cross the bridge between the realm of illusion and into the interpretation that the spirit has of the physical world. And we were living more in the spiritual world because as a people we were more into ritual. And thus by that we had a greater ability to see things before they happened. Because in the realm of myth or in the realm of the metaphysical worlds, all things physical are the byproduct of the metaphysical world. So we lived in the world of metaphysics. We lived in the trans-temporal world, and we crossed the bridge from our illusion back to our reality when we did ritual. The spirit of what it is that you say, how do you kill the spirit? And she says, well, you kill it by healing it. She's right. When we heal ourselves of our focus into and participation, or the need to participate in the world of illusion that he continues to keep and refining and continue to keep making more pleasant and appealing for us to participate in, once we secede or retract our participation in the world as he is giving it to us, his world crumbles. Once we begin to transcend the temporal world that he has fashioned and go into the trans-temporal world through our rituals, we begin to connect up to a whole other universe of realities that our ancestors first laid down. Now you have to also look at it. He is another creature frequency. He is another creative frequency identity. He is, just to, I don't know, he has offended us in the past by our blackness. So I'm going to reverse that field and talk about something that would look like it's offensive, but it is offensive. When the Caucasoid studies diseases, he sees that most of the diseases that start up as a result of the incursion of white blood cells. White blood cells actually come into play in your body when a disease is present. So let's look at that scenario. When the white man came to prominence, obviously the body of the black consciousness must have been diseased. So the only way that a disease or a response to the disease can take over a whole body is if that body was somehow in decay to begin with. So the natural progression to a diseased state would be nature responding the way she does in microcosm as she does in macrocosm. So if we look at a microcosmic response to diseases as the evidence of leukocytes or white blood cells, as we call them, they become evident when you see disease happening. Now, overload of these white blood cells would create leukemia. So you see people die from leukemia because there's an overload of white blood cells. For instance, when you eat a piece of pork, your white blood cell count rises to the level of a person who has leukemia. That's correct. So if you eat a piece of pork and you wait for a while and then draw blood, there would be enough leukocytes and white blood cells in your system that if nobody knew any better, they would say that you have a leukemic situation. So something had to happen to the physical reality of what we call people of color, our melanated brothers and sisters. It either had to be the ending of a time, or the wearing out, or the end result, or the epilogue. Let's just say this. The epilogue to our spiritual journey in the flesh as people of color was our cessation from the illusions that we were participating in. And as that body died for our lack of participation in it, in came the white man. And just like any other destructive cancerous cells, because if you look under the microscope, you would look at the white man, you would look at the cancer cell, and you would see that it was white. So if all cancer cells in microcosm are white, if all things that are dead show up to be, and we don't even call him white, I call him recessive. So they're not the white people, they're recessives. And we call them by what they are by classification. They are recessives. They are the recessive component of humanity. And they cannot be, or they cannot create a dominant structure. They can only create a destructive structure because they come from a recessive strain. So a recessive strain cannot create a dominant consciousness that will take us forward. You're right when you're saying, what is the spirit? The spirit is our lack of attention to this plane. I believe that our ancestors went forward to a whole other reality, and that a lot of us were the rear guard to keeping this realm stable so that the journey to a mentor could go along smoothly. We took the brunt of the disease that came upon this planet to make it, to block the entrance for the disease to come any further than us. We had to take everything that this Caucasoid took at us because our people